This is a series of multiple choice past paper questions on the topic kinetics from AQA A-level chemistry. Going to recommend you pause on each section, have a go at each question, and then review your answer once you've tried it. So let's start with the first question here. And there's a lot to think about here. We are looking at the distribution curve of molecular energies in a gas. Essentially, we're talking about a Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution curve. So I'm going to take one of them off the table straight away. B, there are always some molecules with zero energy. There is a very clear statement that you need to remember that no particles have no energy, and that's why your Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution curve must go through the origin. To consider some of the others, I've done a little sketch of a Maxwell-Boltzmann curve here, and we can look at part C. The position of the maximum of the curve is not dependent on the temperature. But if I sketch on a higher temperature, you can see that the maximum of the curve is dependent on temperature. It's changed. At a higher temperature, it's shifted to the right and it's shifted down. And we can see from the graph directly, from the curve directly, there is definitely not symmetry about the maximum. This comes to the origin, the other side is an asymptote to the curve. That is certainly not symmetrical. So we can disregard A. That leaves us with D. But let's think about this. You can see the little green sketched line and the blue dotted line. The mean energy is always to the right of the most probable energy. And that's because there are a small number of particles with very high energies. Okay, next question for you. Which of these represents the mean energy of the molecules? So the first thing that we need to remember, already discussed on the previous question, is that the mean is to the right of the most probable. So it's not at the highest point of the curve, it's to the right. That then takes us to a 50-50 chance of B or D. But we've also then got to remember that the axes never change. The x-axis is energy. That gives us letter D as the correct answer. Next question for you to try. Once again, Maxwell-Boltzmann curve provided for a lower temperature and a higher temperature. Which represents the most probable at the higher temperature? Well, we have to remember that in a higher temperature, the peak of the curve shifts to the right and down. So this is the higher temperature curve. We then know that we've got B or D, but as already discussed, the x-axis is energy. So the correct answer is D. Next question for you to try. So once again, we've got two different curves, one for lower temperature, one for higher temperature. We want to know the mean energy at the higher temperature. So we've not got the issue of picking off the y-axis. That's been taken off the table here. We've got to remember that the higher temperature is the one with the peak down and to the right. So that's the higher T, and that means we're choosing between R and S. It's then remembering that R is the most probable energy, the modal energy, the highest point on the curve, whereas the mean energy is always to the right. So the correct answer is S. That takes us to the end of this section. Thank you for listening and goodbye.